it's Allie. Welcome to my channel. On the trend of 2020, new year, new you, fresh start, I'm going to talk to you about leaving a toxic job and dive into a little bit of a story time. So, I'm going to talk to you about my story of a toxic work environment. So we're going to tie in the law of attraction, though I hope that you can take what you will from this story and do what you got to do to get out of your bad environment. So, few jobs ago, back towards the earlier stages of my career, I started working at the job, and within the first week I knew that I hated this job. I remember interviewing for this job and I kept thinking, I can't wait for this person to be my boss. She seemed awesome. She seemed awesome in a way that I wanted to aspire to be like her. I liked her presence. I thought she carried herself well, she was confident, and she was friendly, and I just was really excited to be able to work for her. From the first week of working with her, whew, boy, was I wrong. So wrong. So at the time that I started, there was one other girl that worked with us. My boss was the president of this company. We were like in a bigger company, but she was the president under that division of the company. And I loved my coworker and I thought that she was great. We got along really well. I thought she was awesome. She was like one of those happy-go-lucky people who talked like so much. Me, little introverted me, was like, oh my God, whoa, that is a lot. So my boss was like bipolar. There would be days where she would be super nice, super supportive, so kind, and so ready to help you and mentor you. And then like the next day she would be this micromanaging, crazed, like upset for no reason about the smallest things. So she would always make it a point to talk about how she doesn't like to micromanage. But here's where it was getting more and more toxic. To be honest, if someone micromanages me, it's not like the worst thing in the world to me. I can handle a lot. Everyone has a different style. I have a pretty high tolerance for people. But the thing that started to get to me like the most is just like the treatment. She wasn't treating us equally. About 6 months after I started, they brought another girl on, so there was the three of us. There was such a difference in how my boss had treated the first girl as opposed to me and the other girl. I'm not gonna lie, the first girl was really good at what she did. She was better than the rest of us. She just was. But because of this, my boss gave her so much special treatment that was really uncomfortable. When it was her birthday, we would go to these really expensive, nice restaurants. My boss would give her gifts. When it came to my birthday and the other girl's birthday, she wouldn't give us anything. When this girl wanted to like call out for a personal reason, my boss was like, oh, of course, do whatever you need. The other girl that I worked with, the one who came later, had like a death in the family, and my boss was like not letting her leave. It was just like really uncomfortable. She wasn't like volunteering it and made it really awkward when she tried to ask. And it was just very like not... There's such a difference in how she treated us that it created this unnecessary jealousy. I have always been the kind of person where I want to see other women succeed. I love it. I love learning from what they're doing. I love teaching them what I know. I just love seeing people succeed. It's just who I am. I've always wanted to be a mentor. My boss just kept creating an environment where it was forcing us to be jealous of this girl. I didn't want to be jealous of her. I liked her. I thought that she was awesome. I liked to learn how she was doing things and try and apply it to how I was doing things. If she needed help on things that she was weaker in, like using computers and things like that, I was so happy to help. But she kept creating this like environment, like, why can't you be more like her? Why can't you do this? And then like in front, we'd have meetings all together. And all right, so my boss was really into these webinar trainings, and I'm all for additional trainings. I spent a lot of my time reading and trying to develop skills and working on myself and learning different techniques and things to help me in my job. So I'm so open to learning new things. I remember there was like a webinar in particular, and it was such a sales pitch. It was so sales pitchy that it really bothered me to watch. And I remember having this meeting after we all watched this webinar, and we're all talking about what we learned from the webinar. And my boss turns to me and she's like, well, Allie, what do you think of this webinar? And I told her, well, honestly, I didn't really get a lot out of it. I thought it was very sales pitchy. They were trying so hard to push their products that they didn't actually give you any tips or advice how to do your job better. And then my boss says to me, well, I really question your ability to retain knowledge. And she said this in front of the team. It was so uncomfortable. I'm like, did she just call me stupid in front of this team? Like, I'm not trying to start shiznit with my boss. Unlike the other girls who both lived at home and were doing their own thing, good for them, I had a mortgage to pay. I lived on my own. I did not have help. I was on and off again with my boyfriend at the time. Like, I did not have a situation where I could just tell my boss off, get fired, and risk it. Like, even unemployment would not have paid my mortgage. I was living pretty much paycheck to paycheck with my expenses with the bare minimum. So I wasn't in a situation to just call my boss out or whatever. There also wasn't like an HR department where you could go and complain about these things. And let's be honest, when you're in a situation that's this small, like, what are they gonna do? Let the president go or what? So it wasn't really an environment where I felt I could speak up. So that was just one of the cases where she would do this. There were several times where she would say things to me and to the other girl about kind of making us feel stupid. And it would really be how she worded it. And it just would get to you over and over and over again. I realized that this was a toxic environment. Her micromanaging got crazy. So I was a recruiter at the time. So my boss would tell me instructions about prepping a candidate for a particular client, to kind of go over what the client's looking for and to prep the candidate towards that company. So that's what I did. I prepped the candidate exactly how she wanted me to, and everyone overheard it. Everyone like knew that I had done this and knew what I said. So like, okay, it's covered. My candidate goes into the job, and my boss was out that day, and my boss got like a voicemail from the client, and it didn't really say much, but they were like, oh, I want to talk to you about this candidate. We have some things we want to say. Before my boss even talked to this client of hers, she calls me up on her day off and says, you didn't prep your candidate. They're all upset. And she just started screaming at me over the phone about how, like, I told you to prep this candidate. I can't believe that you wouldn't do this after I explicitly told you word for word what to say to them. And you didn't do this. Once again, you didn't listen to me. So everyone overheard my boss screaming on the phone, being like, what was that all about? I'm like, I don't know. You heard me do this. I prepped the candidate. I don't know. At the end of the day, I can only prep someone so much. What they go in and do is so up to them. I can tell them not to do something and they will go and do it anyway. There's nothing more I can do. If someone shows up late, even when I tell them to show up early, that's so out of my hands. I have no control over them. I thought I did a really good job prepping this candidate. And I really liked this candidate. I really believed in her and I was excited for her. And she had even told me the night before that she did a test run to make sure that she had enough time to get there. So I was really confused by this call from my boss. Next day, my boss comes in and she says to me, oh, never mind about my call the other day. Apparently the client said that this was the best candidate that they've ever interviewed. She was so prepared. They were so blown away by how prepared she was. And they were just calling, but they were really impressed by our candidate and blown away by the work that we did. She didn't apologize or anything, and she just went about her day. So that was just one of the many examples of things that she would do. She would always jump the gun. It wasn't just to me. She also did this to other departments. There was a time where there was another manager who was doing something with us in our group, and he had done something that she didn't really like. She had brought him into a meeting with us, pretty much tore him a new one, telling him, don't you dare overstep me, you're bothering my team, and all these things that weren't true. And she put us all three of us, in this situation to almost like forcibly, forced to agree with her in a meeting because she is our boss. We didn't want to get in trouble with our boss. We didn't want to not agree with her and be in more of a toxic environment, but there's just in this really uncomfortable situation where she really should have had this conversation private with him. Why are you having 3 people ganging up on him? Afterwards, each and every one of us had gone up to him and apologized and explained that that was not how we felt. So this was just such a bad environment. All right, so anyway, it got to a point where I would drink every single day trying to decompress from this job, which is horrible. You should not use drinking as a coping mechanism. It got so bad. I was dreading going into work every day. My whole mind was consumed with this. I couldn't even have a conversation with my boyfriend without talking about how bad my day was and how stressed I was. And I loved my coworkers. Everyone else in the company was great. And part of why I stayed as long as I did, even though it was under 2 years, was that I didn't want to leave the friends that I had made there. I felt like this really bizarre loyalty to a company. And this is something that I hope I can encourage other people to not fall into the same thought process that I did. I was always just so grateful to have a job that I had lost the value in myself, thinking I owed the company for giving me this opportunity. It works both ways, and yeah, I don't think that you should start a job and then quit the first month. Have some respect for the people through the hiring process. I know life happens. Sometimes it just works out that way, but give it a little bit of a chance. But in my case, the company had invested a lot of money in me. They had sent me to a really expensive training. They, were putting so much money into me, so I felt like I owed them this loyalty. They hired me. I don't want to let them down. I would just try and power through. But because I was in this toxic environment, like Abraham Hicks says with the law of attraction, you can't get there from there. I'm in a bad situation. How am I supposed to succeed? How can I do my job well if every day I'm just emotionally beating down? I felt emotionally abused at this job. I did not feel like I wanted to do a good job. I was so busy just trying to get through the day that I really didn't do my best work at this job, and it definitely showed. And it was so uncomfortable watching this other girl get so much praise treatment. It didn't really make me or my other coworker want to work harder. It just brought us down. I had a bit of a long distance relationship at the time, and nothing really seemed to be going well. Nothing was going well because my mind was so consumed by this. So I turned to the law of attraction. So I started meditating. I started doing things to try and get in a better place, and started being grateful for the things that I had. I had this opportunity where I was being paid so I could find what I wanted to. So I was trying to learn what I could from the job. And I will say, despite all of that, I learned a lot from that job that I was able to take with me. For instance, I am such an introvert who is scared to death of answering the phone. Because of that job and my forced having to cold call in a conference room with many people, I stopped being scared of the phone, which is part of the reason why I wanted to take that job. I had a lot of things I needed to push through as an introvert with severe anxiety issues, and I wanted to be forced to overcome that. Not in quite an abusive way, but I do think that I have achieved that. I did get over a lot of those fears. I mean, I still have anxiety issues, but being forced to do it more and more, it helped me grow. So I am very grateful for that. So I don't think I would be where I am now had I not had that experience, but I'm glad that I got out of that experience. So once I started to seriously apply to other jobs, I wasn't looking for the perfect job. I was looking for a job that I could work at to get out of a bad place so I could start attracting the things that I wanted to attract. I am such a believer in the law of attraction, and you can't attract what you want in life. I couldn't get there. I couldn't get to what I want at the frequency that I was vibrating at. It was so negative. I was at such a low point. So I knew that to take those steps, I needed to get out of that environment and get a little bit better and better. So I did take my next job, which was definitely not a toxic environment. It was a very interesting experience because I was thrown into all of a sudden running a department, which I was pretty underqualified for, but fake it till you make it. That is my life motto. And yeah, so I jumped into that job. I did have, my boss was very nice. So I did work there. But again, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't that it was this negative situation. I learned a lot being thrown into things, but it also wasn't what I was looking for. It was perfect for that time while I was trying to transition and trying to find what I wanted to do. It provided me what I needed at the time. But since it wasn't perfect, I still wanted to attract something that I really aligned with, that really aligned with who I wanted to be. I pride myself in working hard. I have gotten promoted at almost every job that I've had. So my past experience was really damaging for my ego. So once I got out of that bad situation, all of a sudden things were starting to fall into place. I moved in with my boyfriend, which is where I am now. I got a better job that I absolutely love. I have a great boss who is so supportive. I've learned so much. The whole company, all of my coworkers, my entire team, they're so smart and supportive. Like, no one is this out for themselves, here to get you. Just everyone is just working together. And like once I made that change, then not only did I move in with my boyfriend, but he finally proposed to me, and our relationship has been solid since. And I come home and I don't complain about my job every day. But I couldn't have gotten to where I am if I didn't take those chances. And when I was at that job, my transition job, I had a lot of fear of even pushing past that, because it's like, well, I'm comfortable now. I'm safe now. I'm away from a toxic boss now. Do I keep jumping and risk a worse boss? Do I risk anything else? And the answer is yes, because if you don't try, you'll never have better. You'll never be where you want to be if you don't keep taking these risks. You shouldn't settle for something because it's safe, because it's easy, because of any of those things. If you want a life for yourself, then you need to do things to create that life for yourself. So of course it's scary, and you have expenses and you have risks. Thing is, if you want to attract this life for yourself, you need to be in an environment where you can thrive in. And you can't thrive in an environment with a toxic boss. If you are in a bad situation, I understand the freaking out about money. You have to keep trying. You need to take what you can from every experience. If something doesn't work out, it's just pushing you closer to a door that you should be at. Let that toxic environment show you that you're not where you're supposed to be, and the universe is trying to force you out of this situation because you're not leaving on your own into a situation that's going to align with who you want to be. So I think it's important to acknowledge when you're not happy and take that risk. I'm at a point now where I make so much more money than what I was doing, and I'm so much happier in what I do. It can definitely be scary, intimidating to take that jump. We have families, we have houses, we have rent, whatever it may be. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that the next job will be better, but I'm saying you can't give up because of that fear. And if you do land in a situation that is worse, it's okay, because you're not forced to stay there. One of my fears was that because I worked in recruiting, I did have a lot of experience with resumes and seeing what clients wanted and what they didn't want, and something that a lot of companies hated was job hoppers. They did not like to see that someone had been somewhere like a year, under a year, or under 2 years for that matter. That was a big deal for them. But you know what? You don't have to be afraid, because those jobs who are going to reject you for what's on your resume aren't the right fit for you. My job that I am at now did not care about my jumpy history. They actually loved my responses in regards to that. I learned a lot. I am easily adaptable. I've learned so many new systems in a short amount of time and how the ins and outs of so many companies work that I am able to jump into any company and adapt really well. I'm not set in my ways. I can learn quickly, jump in, dive in, see things from different perspectives because I worked in several different industries, and can be a real asset to a company. If I had been at a company that was miserable for 10 years and all I knew was that, probably would look a lot worse than I do being a bit of a job hopper. So it's not the end of the world. You do you. Feel free to subscribe down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you did not, hit the thumbs down because you do you. It's your life, yo.